Mobile phone addiction, the new age version of internet addiction, passed on from alcohol addiction and drug addiction, even though the internet is only about 40 years old. This kind of addiction refers to behavioral problems that can be psychological or physical due to the abuse of mobile smartphones. Now, when I say abuse, I don't mean like taking your phone and smashing it against the wall or hitting yourself with the phone. I mean abuse through the various things that you see and interact with on your phones on a day-to-day basis, and how that is having an insane impact on your brain and your body, and we don't even realize it. Depression is a pretty common word in the lexicon of people nowadays, and it's a negative emotional experience that is clearly harmful to people's individual mental health and, in very severe cases, can increase the chances of suicide. We're all pretty familiar with depression. However, with the development of the internet, the relationship between your phone addiction and depression has become a more highlighted topic and has gathered more attention from news outlets, researchers, teachers, and concerned parents. Existing research is suggesting a significant positive correlation between mobile phone addiction and depression. These are very serious findings, and I wanted to talk to you about them. Teens who spend longer on social media with their phones score higher on depression scales on average. And retrospective studies show that mobile phone addiction can lead to depression, anxiety, sleep problems, etc. To make matters worse, studies suggest that teenagers with problematic smartphone use are more exposed to cyberbullying. Now, back in my day, they just bullied people face to face, but cyberbullying is more serious than a lot of people realize. Cyberbullying refers to aggressive and hostile attacks by either an individual or a group of people using what's called electronic media or the internet, especially on your phone. This cyberbullying happens repeatedly and permanently against victims, people who can't easily protect themselves. As funny as it sounds to say, just turn off your phone. If everywhere you go, every website you visit, you're being cyberbullied, you're being stalked in the comments section or on the forum boards or whatever it is, you have literally nowhere to go. And unlike face-to-face, where the person has to physically follow you and exert their time and their energy, it is actually a lot easier to cyber stalk or cyber bully someone from the comfort of your phone. And it also makes it a lot easier to coordinate to get a bunch of people to do it. Now, this wouldn't be as much of a problem if the suggestion of, bro, just turn off your phone, just get up and do something else, were a more productive idea. But the sad thing is, if you're addicted to your phone already, as we discussed, you don't really have a lot of other outlets or hobbies, things to take up your time besides work or school. So if you're getting cyberbullied or you're experiencing a lot of these negative interactions in the only place that you have as a third space to relax in, you're basically trapped with nowhere else to go. And studies show that this is a pretty widespread phenomenon. 14 to 50% of students in multiple studies say they have had cyberbullying behavior. And the percentage of students who experienced cyberbullying ranges from 10 to 40%. So anywhere from 10 to 50% of students are either being cyberbullied or cyberbullying. So now we see three of the main culprits that could be putting a huge damper on your life and making things way more negative than they ought to be. Cell phone addiction, cyberbullying, and depression. I don't think I would surprise you if I were to say that numerous studies have found that addiction and depression are often linked, and that addiction increases the risk of depression and is an important predictor of depression. What that means is that people who are addicted are often going to become depressed if they aren't already. A recent 4-year study confirmed that internet addiction is often a stable cause of depression. This means that across people tested, those who use the internet are more likely to become depressed, making internet addiction a significant risk factor to developing depression. Now, this wasn't as much of an issue 25, 30 years ago because cell phones were a lot more expensive, a lot harder to get, and a lot smaller and a lot dumber. Most people had cell phones with just a tiny screen that would display their name, maybe some contact information, but you couldn't be browsing the internet effectively the way that we do now. Now, because we have essentially a miniaturized computer screen in front of us at all times, we carry the internet wherever we go. And although this seems like a meaningless differentiator, it's actually extremely important to what we're talking about. Like, if someone is at risk of becoming an alcoholic, you can suggest to them, well, stay away from alcohol. And if they don't buy alcohol or they don't have any at home, they have multiple places where there shouldn't be any alcohol: at work, at school, in their home. What if I told you that that person has to carry around a beer in their pocket at all times? That is what it's like if you're trying to avoid developing depression, but you basically are forced in modern society to carry a phone around with you in your pocket, which is always there as a gateway to the internet, cyberbullying, depression. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, what is mobile phone addiction? Do I have it? And if I have it, how can we fix it? Okay, let's start with the basics. Mobile phone addiction is characterized by the inability to control your cravings of using your phone, feeling anxious, feeling lost, having feelings of withdrawal and escape, and productivity loss, all related to using or not using your mobile phone. Your loss of productivity, whether it's at school, homework, at work, because of your cell phone addiction, can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, sleep impairment, stress, health problems, etc., and increases the risk of developing things like depression or experiencing things like cyberbullying. Even something as simple as the compulsive need to reflexively check your cell phone, check every time your phone vibrates, can have adverse physical effects on your body. Not only are you shifting and moving your body to pick up a 6-ounce piece of metal hundreds, maybe even thousands of times per day, you're also reacting to the vibrations from notifications or the sounds that hold a permanent place in your mind that distracts you from everything else. You have to hole out this tiny corner of your focus and your attention forever, as long as you're addicted to your cell phone, waiting the next notification, awaiting a sound effect or a buzz or something to give you that next dopamine hit to pick up your phone. To make matters worse, research shows that especially for teens, cyberbullying victimization is a predictor of future cyberbullying. While it sounds counterintuitive, the research actually supports the idea that children who experience cyberbullying will then exhibit or are more likely to exhibit aggressive behaviors online. The way that it works is like this. As a stressful event, the cyberbullying experience consumes the victim's limited psychological resources. You basically don't have enough bandwidth to handle being cyberbullied. Because you lack the bandwidth to deal with it, this cascades into other areas of your life where when you need to use self-control and you need to use some of that bandwidth to do other things or to manage other emotions, feelings, interactions with people, you'll have less than before. This creates a subsequent decline over and over and over again in your self-control and your ability to control your behavior. You become more inclined to react impulsively to people, to situations, and this can gradually manifest itself in ways such as cyberbullying. Rather than seeing a comment that you don't like under a video and just scrolling past it, you're more likely to lose that self-control that lets you walk away or move away or switch apps, and instead sit there talking and bullying and fighting back against people online. Additionally, there's a study from 2016 that coined a term called the frustration attack hypothesis that states that an individual's frustrations can lead to a sort of state of readiness that they fall into. And this basically puts their body and their brain on high alert at all times to attack when they feel threatened by a particular behavior or conversation. This can be caused by being attacked by others, essentially implying that being attacked, whether online or in person, being bullied, can lead you to become a bully yourself. Thus, victims of cyberbullying are more likely to develop an intention to bully others. in a way to gain dominance, to show their own strength, to show their own intelligence, and then avoid or dismiss entirely those feelings of rejection that they experience from their peers. In order to get a better idea of whether you might be addicted to your smartphone or not, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to just answer honestly and jot down your answer. Most of these can be yes or no, but they can also be on a limited scale of, let's say, 1 to 5, in terms of 1 being of lowest intensity and 5 being of highest or sort of uncontrollable, unignorable intensity. The first statement is, if I can't use a mobile phone for a period of time, I will feel anxious. Again, it's up to you to interpret what for a period of time means. That could be 5 minutes, that could be 10 minutes. I don't think it's going to be more than, let's say, 20 or 30 minutes, because a lot of people have important notifications that they have to pick up for either phone calls for work, school, or deadlines that they have to meet. But if you can't go more than a few minutes using your phone without feeling anxious, that can indicate withdrawal behavior, referring to a negative psychological or behavioral reaction when you're not doing things related, in this case, to your cell phone. Another is, I feel the need to spend more time on my phone to feel happy. This one's pretty straightforward. If you often use your phone to make yourself feel better, to seek a better mood, then that can indicate salience behaviors, referring to behaviors of using your cell phone that occupy your thinking and occupy your behavioral activities. In a way, it's kind of like a pacifier for a baby or a weighted blanket for certain people, but in this case, it's something, your cell phone, that can actually be very harmful. There's this idea of social comforts, in the sense of, I would rather use a mobile phone for chatting than face-to-face communication. If you find yourself choosing that once in a while, I think that's okay. If you're always choosing to communicate over the phone rather than face-to-face, that could indicate a problem. There are also negative effects, referring to a decline in your work efficiency and study efficiency due to excessive use of cell phones. For example, procrastination caused by playing with your phone has got you in trouble, whether at school or at work or at home. I open apps on my phone sometimes without even realizing it. Or the classic, which I am guilty of doing myself, I close an app and then a few seconds later I open it back up again, particularly for social media apps like Twitter. You even have this idea of app renewal, where people can say things like, I will be concerned about recent new apps and download them to my phone immediately. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I've engaged in this behavior myself, especially when it comes to certain video games, having the latest download as soon as possible. I think for certain situations you can have more or less leniency, and of course all of these questions and all of these ideas are up to interpretation and they're subjective to your individual needs and your life and lifestyle, but they are trying to get at a broader topic, a scope of whether you may or may not have a cell phone addiction. So you should take these questions and your answers seriously and answer honestly in order to get the most accurate results. I know you may be feeling a bit hopeless or vulnerable right now, thinking that you have a very serious smartphone addiction and you don't know what to do and the steps you need to take in order to fix the situation and improve. While I do have a list of ideas and activities that you can do to reduce your cell phone addiction and combat this stressor and this potential developer of depression, I want to save that for a separate video so that it's easier to access for people depending on whether they are initially dealing with the identification of whether they have a cell phone addiction versus the steps they need to take to reduce it or combat it. The good news is, if you've made it this far into the video, you've already taken the first step. Talking about it, engaging with material that is going to confront your potential cell phone addiction is the first step to getting better at it. You cannot combat an issue, especially those that deal with psychological and emotional traumas, without first talking about it and admitting that you may have a problem. Of course, for those of you that feel you have a very serious problem, it's always best to seek professional help in person rather than relying on what you can learn online from free resources like YouTube. That being said, I know that together we can conquer our cell phone addictions, and we can all go touch grass and be better for it. If this conversation gave you some hope, pass it on. Thank you.